It's Monday, 7 o'clock. That only means one thing, that I'm here again, sorry. We're at Jack West Mods, and as you can see behind me, I am surrounded by a wonderful array of parts and products that are available for purchase, and we are going to talk about my SR20DET engine. For those of you that are new to the channel, a couple of weeks ago, I blew up the engine in my drift car. Obviously, going back to the last episode, we all know, well, actually the original episode, but we all know that I'm going to go off and compete in BDC this year. So I had a couple of options. One was to maybe try and bodge together the engine that I've got and repair it and stuff that back in the car. The other was to get another engine from somebody else and put that in the car. So I thought what I'd do is have a chat with Dave Yandell from DY Engines. He is the SR20 Don. If you don't know what an SR20 is, it's a Nissan 2-litre 16-valve turbocharged engine, which is probably, in my opinion, one of the best engines for drifting that's ever existed. So I took my engine down to Dave, and he has completely reworked it and done a number of things which I'll run you through now. To begin with, let's talk about where the air goes in the engine. I've fitted a Garrett G25-660 turbo with a 0.74 AR ratio. Now what that means is that it's a very small turbo, so it's almost the size of a standard turbo, but it can produce up to 660 horsepower. But that's if your engine's absolutely as efficient as it can be. I would imagine that I can get to somewhere around about 500 horsepower, taking into account that it's a sewing machine from the 70s. That turbo is then attached to a Walton Motorsport manifold, which is made of 3mm wall thickness stainless steel. So the thing is tough as old boots. Mike does a great job on the manifold. He gives them a lifetime warranty, so should that manifold break or crack from heat, he will actually replace that for you. So the wastegate then is a Turbosmart unit that I can't actually remember the size of it, to be honest, sorry. But yeah, it's a Turbosmart one, and it's quite big. Well, it's not, it's quite small. Basically, if you want to know about wastegates, then effectively you have a small turbo, you have a big wastegate, and if you have a big turbo, you have a small wastegate. Wait, no, that's wrong. If you run a lot of boost, you want a little wastegate, and if you're not running a lot of boost, you want a big one. Do something with that. Okay, so coming around to the front of the engine, you will notice some nice blue pulleys. These are from Garrett, and there's no real benefit to them other than they're a bit lighter. So the size of them hasn't changed from original. If you're running a normal crank pulley, I would suggest that you get an underdrive pulley for your water pump, because what tends to happen is that in high RPM, the water will cavitate, which basically means that the water pump, the little blade inside the water, will spin so fast that it creates bubbles inside the coolant system. So you just want to slow that down. So to do that, you make the wheel bigger and it takes longer to turn. It's a fairly simple concept. But the way I've done that on mine is that I have a new style ATI super damper pulley, and it's underdriven. So the older pulleys are not underdriven, the new ones are, which basically means that when you change a pulley, you've also got to change your belts, which I forgot and ordered the wrong belts, but we can change that. Also, you'll notice that my fan is many bladed. It is a GK Tech fan. That is from Jack West Mods. He does have them on the shelf if you need one. It's just to basically draw more air through and just try and keep the engine cooler. It's never a bad thing to just keep fresh air moving through the engine bay. Inside the water pump that you can't see, so it's a brand new water pump, which is from JDM Garage, I'll give them a shout. Inside there is a Nismo thermostat, and it's a Nismo 62-degree thermostat. The standard one is 72.5 degrees. The reason for changing this is that you want to run your SR engine quite cool. Now I know with like some of you guys will be running JZ engines and you run those up in the 90 degrees, they run quite hot. With an SR, if you're drifting, you want to run between 80 and 85 degrees water temperature and try and keep your engine cool. If you keep your engine cool, it will last a long time. So for the investment of 25, 30 quid or whatever it might be for a Nismo thermostat, that's what you want. Moving around, we're coming up to the inlet manifold. In the inlet manifold, I fitted 750cc injectors. which with I have a Tomei type L fuel regulator, which is bolted to the chassis rather than the engine. That should be able to cope with the fuel demands for 500 horsepower, there or thereabouts. If I was going to try and push for 550, I would definitely step up the injector size, but where we are is just about fine. So then swinging around to the back of the engine, you'll notice I've got a big red Nismo Super Copper mix clutch. In my opinion, Nismo make the best clutches for Nissans, hands down. There's nobody else that basically creates a clutch with quite the same feel. So although the clutch is a twin plate, it won't drive in too dissimilar a fashion to a standard clutch. The reason being is that the way the strength of a clutch is measured varies between companies. So one company can have one system of measurement that's different to another. So for example, you could have two clutches rated for, my Nismo is rated for 600 horsepower, okay? So the way that's done with the Nismo clutch is through the actual friction material of the clutch disc. And the way another company might do it is through the strength of the springs that hold the disc, the clutch plate and the flywheel together, like literally the clamping force. So the clamping force can then determine what torque or what power output that clutch can handle. So the way Nismo does it is through the material itself rather than through sheer force. Because of that, you get much better pedal feel. It's much less stressful on your gearbox and your actually on your bearings of your engine, because you get something called crank walk. So crank walk is where the crankshaft itself will move forwards and backwards in the engine because you've literally beasted the clutch that many times that it's putting a shock load through it. So eventually you'll wear your bearings out, which is why you break things like main seals. That's how they're wearing out generally, is because there's so much load there and so much heat there that they'll just break down and fail. So the kinder you can be to your driveline, the better the car will be. And that is why I picked Nismo and only Nismo. Although incidentally, Nismo are manufactured by Daikin Clutch Corporation, who also manufacture Exedi. So I think Exedi do have a very similar friction material, but anything copper mix is what you want really if you're looking from other brands. There are companies like Agora Clutch, ORC, that also make very good clutches, so I'm not knocking on anything, but that's the one I use and that's why I use it. So going in the engine, head-wise, I have HKS 264 step 2 camshafts. So the duration and the lift of the camshaft is changed. From memory, I believe the lift is like 10.8 millimeters, but it's been a long time since I looked at that. It has Tomei valves, springs, retainers, retainer washers, and then I have Supertech guides and lots of other finicky bits that have all been replaced. Going into the cylinder head, I've removed some of the squish pads. Head gasket is a Saruda unit. It's a 1.2 millimeter head gasket, and I have an 87 millimeter CP piston. So the compression of the engine is now 8.5 to 1, and my CC has gone to 2087 cc. The rods are Manley rods, so they're good, thick, strong rods, and the crank is stock, but the block has HKS liners in it. In theory, it should be able to take a lot of boost and a lot of flack, and should I have any problems in the future, the HKS liners have got a very thick wall, so it means that if I have detonation and a cylinder is damaged, I can actually rebore the engine. So I can keep sort of salvaging the engine and moving forwards with the same engine block if I have any problems. Under my fancy Tomei rocker cover, spark plug cover, I have some split fire coil packs. Inside the engine is a grade 8 iridium plug. Generally with an SR, the most important factor with them is to run them cool and keep them well serviced. I've managed to blow up 2 SRs in 20 years of drifting, which is a pretty good effort, I think, really, just simply because I change oil regularly, I keep them as cool as possible, I always keep the viscous fan, and I'm very aware of ambient heat. If you just keep slugging away on your engine, at some point it's going to give up. Additional remarks, I would say always run a high quality radiator. My personal preference I shouldn't really say this because you're all going to buy them up, but if you can get a twin core Koyo or Yashio factory radiator, that's as good as it gets. I stockpile them, so if anyone's selling them, give me a shout, because more than likely I'll buy one, especially if it's brand new. I'm still trying to buy my old one back because I know where that is. So yeah, I hoard those things. It's the best by far. If you can't find one, then Koyo still do a twin core rad. I can get rads from anywhere, you know, but that is the one that I know and I trust, and it just works. Intercooler wise, don't buy cheap. If you buy cheap, it'll go wrong. I would much sooner have a used R32 GTR intercooler than a random eBay intercooler. Your intercooler can really dramatically change the efficiency of your engine and your inlet air temperatures, are basically where your power's made. If your inlet air temperature is really high, you're going to have problems with detonation and actually timing and how much power you can physically run. So it's all about keeping things cool and efficient. So buy Blitz, buy Greddy, buy some other company that I don't use that's very high quality, but just make sure you're buying quality. Hey, this is the outro. I'm gonna look away. I am not gonna ask you to do anything after this video because that is not what I am about at all. If you do like it, that's fantastic. Tell a mate, just say, go and watch that, it's all right that. But that's it, like, I don't want anything from you. Just enjoy it. Enjoy your life, boys, like, and girls, and pets. I like pets, I've got a dog. See you next Monday at 7, thanks, bye. Actually, there is one thing. If there's something you want to know, and I might have the answer, just, there's a thing down there, just use that thing, and just say, here mate, what does this mean? And I'll go, Google it. Well, no, I won't, I'll answer, but you know, next Monday, 7, do a thing.